Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Meltdown Abroad. As you know, for our summer format, we're putting the dilemmas into your hands by answering some of your parenting meltdowns. Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's see what we've got. So we have a note from a parent who says summer has really thrown us off. She says, my kids are completely off of their routine since school ended. And with multiple children and different needs, I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water. How do I get everyone back on track? Well, my heart goes out to this mom. I think that there's probably a lot of others that are feeling pretty similarly right now.
I think this is a very typical thing to happen.
Yeah.
You go from school and the structured timetable to now they're home all day long. You're not on summer vacation and they still need a routine.
Yeah, that's it. And all the, even, in the routine that we typically have, even if we're working, there's space that's created for us to get some of the things that we need to get done when they're at school, and that throws us off also. The other thing that strikes me here in this question here is also about how she has multiple children and how they have really different needs.
Yeah.
And I definitely feel like it's one of the difficult parts about being a parent is that your children are very much not the same, and the things that work for one don't always work for the other one, and you can feel like it's quite difficult to meet all of those needs at one time. And I think even before we start, just letting you know that it's a really normal feeling and it's a really typical situation to have, and it's not that we're doing anything wrong, that it's just part of the deal of having multiple little humans that have different needs all at the same time.
We're here to tell you, you don't need to meet all of their needs.
Exactly. And it's not like the balance is not always what we think. Sometimes we beat ourselves up for how the day went. And it's really like, you can't meet totally different needs very well or consistently at the same time, right? And so the balance there is usually about looking out a little bit more and seeing like, okay, this week, these days we paid a lot of attention to these things, and these other days we paid a lot of attention to these other things, and looking a little further away at the overall balance and not feeling like every moment is required to have that balance, because it really doesn't.
Yeah, I think we can just jump straight to the strategies as well.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So like we said before, this is really typical. So I don't think you're doing anything wrong at all. I think it just happens. It's life. You're busy working mom. Parents are busy.
Yeah.
Just because the kids are home doesn't mean that you're not home with all this free time. So what I would start with is, how can you begin to establish some routines? And I think the easiest routine that you can possibly implement is going back to the bedtime and wake time routines and starting there, because not only will it help you for the summer, but it will already initiate a routine for them going back to school, and we're not starting from scratch. Yeah. So I'd start there and see how you can then start piling little bits of routines where you can, based on your schedule. I say stick to what's within the realm of what you can do, and don't let Instagram and social media trick you into thinking that you should be doing more. So I can have them up at a certain time. I can let them go to bed at a certain time. Okay, where do I have time in between the day to do something with them, or to organize a structured activity for them to be able to do?
And even the bedtime, so getting that set at a certain time that feels early enough that it's getting them really good sleep and still appropriate for summertime, it also sets a routine for you. Now you know when the kids are asleep, you know what kind of time you have for yourself, even if you're looking to set up a couple things that you want them to be able to do during the day. When there's some space for that, or you do it during the day and you help them get involved in making little craft bins and things like that they can pull out when they need some projects, or if you want to have kind of a project time that's after breakfast or something that you can add in once you've really just got those anchors of, this is generally when we go to bed. And it can be a range at summertime, right? It doesn't have to be on the nose, it's this exact time, but where there's between this time and this time is when we're going to bed. Mm-hmm. And also between this and this time, we're waking up, because it's very difficult for kids when it's very light out to go to bed early when they're sleeping in. Mm-hmm. And so if we can set both within reason, right, it just frames then everything else. Now, when we have breakfast is roughly around the same time, and it just provides some of these anchors in the day that really help.
Yeah. And then I would also think about what you were saying that the kids can be involved. They can also be involved in creating like what they want to do, because if the kids all have different needs, what I'm hearing is that they all have different things that they're interested in and want to do. So maybe if everybody gets like an opportunity to put the thing that they want to do down, we're all going to be participating in each activity, but one day it will be your preferred activity, and starting that way to share to make sure everybody kind of gets what they want. And then if we're also talking about their needs in terms of maybe they have something more going on, I know that it can be hard when it's light earlier and light later. Some things that you can put in place to help keep the bedtime routine is probably blackout curtains, to just have them in multiple parts of the house, like where the kids usually hang out, maybe in the living room and in their bedroom, so that we're getting dark in the living room and getting the transition for bedtime ready in their bedroom as well.
I have them in my living room also for this exact reason, because they just go from it being completely bright to then dark in their room, and that was still too jarring. So just having the living room where it's possible to make it darker, so that that sort of lead up to bedtime, you can actually curate a little bit better in summer.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference.
It does. Yeah. And then another thing that could happen is that the noise levels are much more, because kids are outside playing, people are outside, the weather's nice. So how can we build in like more noise canceling activities? Maybe it's even having white noise playing at a certain time. And if you are going to introduce something, you can use it all year long. It doesn't have to stop. It helps them just have this routine, this thing that they're used to, and it can be consistent for the entire year. You don't even have to think about it. Yeah. But just having something that either muffles the noise a little bit more, so maybe you have to seal the windows a little bit close, a little bit more. I know if you're in Europe, you're working overtime to get noise canceling, but
yeah, it's a little harder.
It is possible. Playing more quiet games, or maybe moving away from the living room as much and making quiet time somewhere else in the house that's more quiet. But these are some ways that you can start to meet some of the needs of all the children.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're feeling overwhelmed by sort of curating things, and I think this list is a great idea, where you kind of, even at dinner, where like everyone puts a few ideas together and you sort of build it out together, that's great. And there also might be things that you really enjoy. And perhaps the schedule allows for some of the time for you to be able to do that. And if there are certain things that you enjoy, summer can actually be a really nice time to do them with your kids. You know, if you really love hiking, you can take them on a short one or something that's kind of like a walk around a lake someplace, or kind of do something that you actually really enjoy doing. Sometimes it's not just being off routine, but then it's also feeling like, because no one's on as much of a routine and everybody's home all the time, there's just less time for yourself. And so sometimes a way to navigate that is actually to do more of the things that you like, and help them see why you love those things. You know, they might look a little bit different when they're there with you, but it can also be a really nice activity, and something that you decide every Wednesday you go on, walk around the lake or something. And that can be like soothing for everyone, but it also gives you a little bit of what you need. And it can be another anchor in your week when you're coming up with little routines and fun things that you might go and do.
Yeah, and I would say call out to your village, see what's going on. Are you part of any parent groups? Can you guys take turns like leading activities, maybe hosting play groups or excursion time where a couple of the parents chaperone and you guys switch out? So sometimes some of you will be childless, and other times the responsibility will be you and all the kids. And then also reach out to the village, whether it's your parent groups, your friends and families, or even online, to see if there are activities and excursions going on in the neighborhood. So I know camps tend to fill up very quickly, and then if you miss a slot, it's kind of like, what do I do with them now? But for that reason, there are always little bits and pieces of activities going on somewhere. The local library, they like to host things. Maybe
community swimming pools.
The swimming pool, so you can go and leave the kids there for some time and also get some respite for yourself. But that can add a layer of routine if we map out like what activities they can do. They're looking forward to that for the day, and that's a little bit of structure for them.
Yeah, even having a couple outings a week, where they're going, if they're not in a camp or anything else that's structured, even if one of those is maybe sort of a village activity, maybe, a few for a pool, you need multiple adults, but maybe a few people are going to the pool one day, or maybe, one parent is taking a few to the library or something like that, but where there's a few days a week that are like, these are outing days and we organize it together. And then the other days you're coming up with some activities at home. But for the routine, really, it's, if you just look at sleep and you look at when we're eating, if you just frame it with those things, then it's, we want to get some exercise and maybe some time with friends, and maybe we're making something, and so we can come up with different ways of doing that feel well suited to your family. But it's really just about having some of the anchors that frame the day so that we know what to expect a little bit better, because that's really what's so regulating about the normal school year is that we know exactly what's going to happen. We know when the day starts, we know when it ends, we know what happens in between. And so we're not going to have that much structure as we would during the school year, during the summer. But even just having some of those anchors helps everyone to know what to expect a little bit more. Even if one of those anchors is, well, Tuesdays, it's an outing day. That's an anchor. Like, everyone can expect that there will be some little adventure that goes on that day, right?
Yeah.
And that really helps everyone to feel that there is a rhythm, even if it's not quite as, specific as it is during the year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look at the part where you say, I'm barely keeping my head above water. And so I'm wondering if it's the planning the activities part that's difficult, or is it that you just don't have time to plan these things? Yeah. And I think either situation is quite normal and typical. You're not expected to be able to do it all. But if it is the planning of the activities, you can just Google like summertime at-home activities, and there's lots of PDFs and Pinterest boards that tell parents like what kind of things they can do. And sometimes it could just be like paper-based, where the kids are building a project, and that can take a couple of hours for the day. So it doesn't always have to be an excursion. And then if it's a matter of like not having time to be there with the kids, I wonder if maybe even like hiring a babysitter could be useful for a few weeks out of the month, just so that you can feel better for the few weeks over the summer, or a couple days a week, just so that the stress is off of you. And again, if you have family members as well who could take on some of that task, that might just, you might just not, you need to get away from the responsibility and not feel so overwhelmed. So those are some strategies. If it's hard to find babysitters and you have a friend who has a babysitter, maybe like pairing the kids.
But then it's a play date, and it's and maybe then it's a contribution to the babysitter rather than like having all of the cost on one person.
Exactly.
Honestly, parents both really like that. Like, it helps everybody, and then the kids get a little more social time if they're not in a camp or a structured activity.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do too. Yeah.
But
it's hard, going from having a really, consistent routine to having to feeling like you have to recreate everything is overwhelming. And the truth is that you don't have to recreate everything. It's just about having a little bit of structure in place and coming up with a couple of even just top priority supports. So if you're looking at, you have multiple kids and they have different needs, like, what are you the most concerned about? What do you feel like is missing the most? And just tackle that first. We talked about the idea of bedtime, so that would be bedtime in the morning, like that would be one that we'd recommend for sure.
Yep.
And then, where are the largest challenges, and can you enlist some support for those?
Yeah. And as always, guys, we are a community. So if this is something that you've gone through before, please share some of your strategies. If you have kids that are of different age groups and you have methods of like building activities that works for everyone, list them in the comments section below. And if you know of any friends or families who could benefit from this episode, please share it with them. We do want to make sure that we're providing as much help as we possibly can. But yes, if you have your own question, please send it in to meltdownabroad@gmail.com. Or if you're following us on socials, which I know you should be, and you are, you can DM us and we'll answer them in one of the episodes. But until then, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next episode.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.